This is Suspicious Minds with Wade Durbin and Burl Tuttle. We can probably just get going.
Yeah, for sure. One thing, I wanted to continue the first of an ongoing series of what we'll call Elvisploitation.
Elvisploitation? I think that's a good explanation for what I saw.
Because it's like movies, not necessarily Elvis biographies, but movies about Elvis. Elvis is like a fictional character in a movie.
Right. He's used quite a bit because he's almost like an Abe Lincoln or whatever character. But no, I agree. It's interesting that you bring that up. Even the beginning of this just says it's a fairy tale, you know? So we kind of jump right in. But since we're going... Well, I hit record and then you jumped right in on that. I was like, oh, okay, right, great first one. But what we're talking about is 1988's Heartbreak Hotel. That's what we're talking about on the big show. Welcome to the show, by the way. This is our show. Yeah, I think we forgot how to start it. So
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been since the last episode that we did this, so we're out of practice. But yeah, it's Heartbreak Hotel. How should we start this? Should we gonna go through?
Well, we should probably introduce ourselves since the show has started.
Oh yeah, we should do that. So go ahead.
This is Wade Durbin speaking. How's everybody out there in podcast land?
And this is Burl Tuttle. And once again, welcome to the show, Suspicious Minds and Heartbreak Hotel. Wow. You know, I keep telling myself one of these days we're going to see a good one. We're going to watch a good movie. And I know they're out there, but we pick them.
There are good movies starring Elvis and good movies about Elvis. We have not encountered any of them yet.
No. And I think that is something I think for our next season, because we only got a few more episodes, like 2 more for this season. But I think maybe we'll start off next season. We're going to do a good one. Mm-hmm. Because this one is, it's like, it's so bad, but you almost love it because it's so bad.
It's very watchable, which I would definitely consider a compliment. It's short. It's 90 minutes, you get in, you get out. And that's about all the good things I have to say about it, really. I don't know.
Ooh, hold on. Well, let's see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you might have nailed them all. It's got Tuesday Weld. She's nice.
Yeah.
She's fun. It's got the first Aubrey from National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yes. I was disappointed how little she actually has to do in this movie.
Yeah. What's her name? Dana Barron is the actress's name. Yeah.
She proved herself to be, at a young age in the first National Lampoon Vacation. She's funny. She's got comic chops. And this is supposed to be a comedy, I think. Though.
Is it really a comedy? Because it doesn't really play comedically. I guess maybe it's a comedy just to say the entire movie is a joke, then you would probably be nailing it.
Sure. Maybe a nostalgic fable, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just grasping at straws here.
It seems like a draft of something someone had to turn in for a class, and then they're just like, well, why don't we just shoot this? Mm-hmm. We got money. We got this money laying around. We got this thing. It's about...
before we get too far into it, we should probably make with a synopsis.
Yeah, let's do that. You want to take the reins on that, Wade?
Sure. I'll give it a try here. Movie's about 17-year-old Johnny Wolfe, is played by Charlie Schlatter. Does anybody know?
Well, fortunately, we don't need to know. Although he was later cast as Ferris Bueller.
TV's Ferris
Bueller. Didn't do too well in that either.
Though for me, I consider that an upgrade because there's probably nobody in show business I hate more than Matthew Broderick.
Okay. We don't have to go into it now, but maybe we'll get into a discussion about that later on.
Yeah. I mean, if it comes up again, we can talk about it. But,
okay. We can read your blog.
Yeah. But 17-year-old Johnny Wolfe is his name, of the fictional town of Taylor, Ohio. The year is 1972. He lives in this crumbling hotel with his mom and his little sister. It's never really specified how old the little sister's supposed to be, because she looks about 10 or 12, but acts like she's 5.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's this whole thing about her with sleeping with the lights on.
Yeah.
And, yeah, she seems really long in the tooth for that to be an issue.
She seems a little old for it. And,
Yeah.
you know, she's like a little too articulate and kind of self-actualized to be, you know, somebody who's like afraid of the dark.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Johnny Wolf's mom is played by Tuesday Weld. She's, and there's no judgment, she's a bit of a party mom. She parties.
Yeah, she takes gentleman callers. She hangs out with the wild bad boys.
Goes out on dates, whatever.
Yeah, dates.
You know, it is what it is. You know, comes home late at night with, and we really only see her with one dude. Comes home late at night. They've had a couple drinks. They put some music on. They're kind of like sitting around and chilling. And this is our introduction to young Johnny Wolf. Kind of tears down the stairs, tells him to cut off the music, tells him to get to sleep or whatever. You know, just a lot of nerve coming from this kid.
Yeah, I know. He's really interrupting what I would call a scotch and sofa. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was what was going to happen.
Yeah, it was,
but yeah, he's...
and really about 5 minutes away from a little coitus interruptus.
Exactly.
Type scenario.
Yeah.
So anyway, so long story short, Tuesday Weld gets into a car accident with this ne'er-do-well boyfriend of hers.
Steve.
And Steve is his name. Okay.
Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's roughed her up, too. He's drinking, he's drunk driving, and he's roughed her up. She winds up in the hospital.
Though, in an interesting detail, she's bashed up enough from the car accident to end up in the hospital. Though young Johnny Wolf singles out the fact that she has a black eye. It's like, oh, well, where did you get that? And it easily could have been explained away like, well, hey, asshole, I was in a car accident bad enough for me to end up in the hospital. Like, how are you singling out, you know, this? But as it comes out, Steve, the boyfriend, smacked her up a little bit.
And young Johnny wants no part of that. I mean, good, which is good. You know, you should.
Oh, yeah, good for him. Good for him. You know, don't you dare smack up my party mom. So Johnny Wolf concocts this scheme in which did I mention he has his own rock and roll band?
Oh, you know, here's the thing I noticed about that. It is a rock and roll band, but how rock and roll is it when you practice your rock and roll before breakfast? I mean, I know you got to get it in where you can, and kids sometimes they have jobs and whatnot and whatever. Sure. But at 7 a.m. in the morning or whatever time, I don't know what school starts for these kids. It's early.
Sure.
But to think like I'm going to get up an hour early to practice with my band, that just doesn't seem that rock and roll to me. I would think late night. They would have been playing late night.
Yeah, but the thing is also just the fact that Johnny Wolf will tear down the stairs and tell his mom to like go to bed early, and he's very judgmental. He's very Puritan, if you know what I'm talking about. So it's not like he was up late drinking or anything. And it's like, oh, we got to fit in a band practice before school every day. So when did they get in? Like 6? Did they start practicing? I mean, who are these kids?
Right, and it's a band, so it's like nobody's going to show up like on time. Like somebody's going to sleep through that. Which would explain why they've been doing this for 3 years, getting up, writing songs, practicing, but apparently have not had a gig. Because the only place that he said that they could play is the school talent show. And there's no other place for them to play. So literally they're just in there every day, just tinkering away at this one song, I guess, because I think they might have 2 songs here, but I think it's just one song.
I believe we hear the same song twice, and then once maybe we hear like a snippet of something that's like possibly a different song, or maybe a breakdown of the same song. I don't know.
Maybe it's the bridge.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Where's that confounded bridge?
Right.
But anyway, it's just another one of these 80s films where high school talent shows are just kind of disproportionately important in the lives of these kids. It's like, I'm thinking also a movie that this probably most closely resembles in tone, Back to the Future.
Right, and I think you and I had a conversation at one point where I thought this Johnny Wolf character, played by Charlie Schlatter, he is a Michael J. Fox type. I think they're just like, get us somebody who can as closely approximate Michael J. Fox as possible, and let's just cast that guy.
Right.
So,
I guess we should say that Elvis Presley figures into this film at some point. His scheme being basically to cheer his mom up. And he's making a huge leap here. Is that he's going to figure out a way to kidnap Elvis Presley, who's currently on tour, and bring him back to his mom's hotel and basically keep him as a hostage and force him to go on a date with his mom to cheer her up.
It sounds it sounds plausible. I mean, it sounds like exactly the kind of fun family fare that was so popular in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah. And then they just put all the pieces together, these masterminds who can't get a gig for their band, somehow in like an afternoon come up with a plot to get Elvis Presley back to their hotel and on a date with the mom.
Which this plot involves finding a local lookalike for Elvis's dead mother, Gladys.
Yep.
Dressing her up to look as much like Gladys as possible. Take her to this show, position her in the front row of the show, and basically kind of like start working mind games on Elvis. You know, get them all confused. Because Elvis is like an animal. And then slip a note to Elvis that says your dead mother will be outside of your hotel at 2 a.m. or whatever. And then that's when they make their move.
That's what they do. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they breeze over a lot of that stuff real quick. Let's do this thing. We got to kidnap this guy. And then, it takes all of, about 5 or 6 minutes?
Right. So from the time he conceives of the plan to the time that Elvis is back at the hotel, approximately 5 minutes of screen time.
Yeah. It's not very long.
So anyway, Elvis is in the hotel, meets Johnny Wolf's mother, kind of hits it off with her, spends an unspecified amount of time in Taylor, Ohio. Just decides to, I know I was chloroformed and brought here, at gunpoint.
It's ethered, which they don't talk about, but they had like a bottle of ether that they put on like a rag, which I had to go back a couple times and like, what does it say on the bottle? But it's ether, which I don't think knocks you out that long. But apparently they gave him so much, I'm assuming they had to keep reapplying or redosing him with it, because that, they got to drive all the way back from, I'm assuming, I don't know how long the trip is.
Yeah, Cleveland to, the fictional town of Taylor, Ohio.
Yeah, so however long of a trip that would be fictionally, an hour maybe, 45 minutes, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
So they had to keep him knocked out that long, then put him into a room. And then there's a point when he gets up and he's trying to leave, and Elvis had a gun on him, which, here's one of the places where it breaks down. Isn't he, and we've discussed it a few times, Elvis, black belt karate, 4 teenage kids, and he's only really facing one of them, right, at one point. Right. And he has a pistol on him. And somehow he still gets kidnapped. I don't know. I'm going to say implausible.
Yeah, and the whole thing, it's like, I believe the real Elvis was like training his entire life for exactly this scenario.
I'm sure he was scared to death it would happen.
Yeah, it's like somebody's going to like trick me into coming off stage and try to kidnap me, and then that's when first of all, like the first thing that Elvis would have done is like had his gun drawn. But, and this is something that I feel like it's going to be like a real temptation for us to slide into, is to speculate what, Elvis would have actually done in these situations.
It's tough not to, because it's supposed to be this fairy tale. It's supposed to be... Right. You're supposed to gloss over the point that these facts, because you want to get to the heart of the story, which is Elvis with this family and fixing these problems and whatnot. And
yeah. So basically, you want to get to like Elvis for some reason is invested enough to like help this kid's mother retain some sense of self-esteem. Elvis is invested enough in Johnny Wolf and the Wolf Pack, the band. It's like, hey, let me show you some pointers. Let me show you some moves or whatnot. And then the main point of it in the climax of the film, it's like, so they won't let you in the talent show. Let me kind of force my way into this high school talent show with this band, and we'll, show these fuddy-duddies what's up. And that's what they're trying to get to. It's just the steps that they make towards this are just one incredibly unlikely scenario after another, to the point where it's like, I just don't even know what I'm watching.
Yeah, it gets really muddy really quick, and it gets so ridiculous really quick. And then, just the moment where they're standing there and the Johnny character, he's got Elvis's gun pointed at Elvis, and somehow the way that he convinces him to stay is to say something to the effect of, oh, you're going to turn your back on us just like you turned your back on rock and roll. And then that's the thing where he's like, well, I never did that. I never turned my back on rock and roll. And here's the other thing I don't like about this. Here's the thing I don't like about it. It kind of supposes, because it's 1972, so I would say pretty good era of Elvis. Pretty good era for him.
Sure.
It's pre Aloha from Hawaii. It's just after the movie stuff. He's just kind of starting back on tour, so I'm sure his shows were still pretty good at this point. But they kind of make it seem like that era of Elvis is like he had just totally lost it. And I'm going to say it's a really good era for Elvis. People make fun of the jumpsuits. They don't bother me that much. I kind of like them, for what he's doing. I mean, it's a stage show. They keep comparing him to like Alice Cooper and all this kind of stuff, all these other sort of acts. But there's this part of me that kind of keeps wishing that they had done like a later version of it, but they're doing it just to help Elvis. Like they do it in like 1976, and they're just doing it to like get him off drugs and get him back in shape so that he can go back to like the 1972 version of Elvis. Like, this is back when you still had it, E. But that's not what they did.
No.
It's a totally different movie. But we should write that movie. We should write that movie.
Yeah.
I would have liked that movie.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah, just to remake a Heartbreak Hotel. It's what the world's calling out for.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was a joke.
Yeah, I know. They weren't really calling out for the first version of it. Right. And the thing is, it's directed by, and written too, right? Was it written by?
Written and directed by Chris Columbus.
Yep. And he definitely has some great movies. This just isn't one of them.
He wrote The Goonies. He directed Adventures in Babysitting, which isn't really my thing, but I know a lot of people that enjoy that one.
You should rewatch it. It's pretty good.
Is it good?
Pretty good film. Yeah, it's pretty good.
And, of course, he was the director of one of the highest-grossing films of all time, Home Alone.
Nice.
Which also isn't my thing, but I understand why people like it.
Okay, see, that one I can agree with you there, but I would say go back and rewatch Adventures in Babysitting.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. And the weird thing is, I want to say that the younger sister, like the Pam character, there's sort of some, and I don't remember the name of the character in Adventures in Babysitting, so forgive me. And I'm sure there's somebody screaming it. But there are some similarities, I think, with that kid, with the Pam character and then the younger sister in Adventures in Babysitting. Now that I think about it, I didn't really think about it until right now.
Yeah, all I remember about that movie is that it was like a young girl obsessed with the Marvel Comics character Thor.
Correct.
Who later shows up in the form of a young Vincent D'Onofrio. It's a weird movie, basically.
But like good weird. This is just bad weird. So,
circling back around to Chris Columbus. He did some Harry Potters or something. I don't know. Is that something he did? I don't know anything about that crap.
Yeah, I didn't. They're not my thing.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Magic Boy. I was watching this movie, and so if it's like written and directed by the same person, you think, oh, well, this is like a labor of love. It's like, I was thinking, oh man, he must have saw Elvis on Ed Sullivan when he was like 10 years old or something. And then I looked it up, and Chris Columbus was not born until 1958.
Yeah.
So Elvis was already like super famous when this guy was born. So I'm wondering, so you were 10 years old and you watched the 68 comeback special, and is that when you became a fan? Or like, why are you so concerned about Elvis losing this like rock and roll edge when like it's really not even a part of your generation? I don't know. I found that confusing.
Well, I think that Elvis was sort of a joke at that point, right?
In the 80s or...
Well, I think for just that generation, maybe, because he wasn't cool. So, like, I think he would have been... I mean, I don't know what music Chris Columbus, I can only suppose. But I don't think that would have been the kind of music. He would have been probably more into late 60s, early 70s rock and roll. And Elvis didn't really fit into that. You know, he would have been really passé, I guess is what I would say. Not that he's not cool or whatever. So he probably just comes from it from a different headspace.
Right. So maybe he sees himself in, young Johnny Wolfe, who, let's see, if Johnny Wolfe is 17 in 1972, that means he would have been born mid-50s. Yeah, sure. And that's another thing about Johnny Wolfe. As much as he's supposed to be like a kid of his era, he's repping Alice Cooper in several scenes. This is 1972. We talked about this previously. It's like, what do we call it? The Anson Williams effect.
Yeah.
And that, like, sometimes it's really hard to wash the characteristics of a decade out of a project, like a period piece that you're making.
Right.
So, like, Happy Days is supposed to be about the early 60s, but everyone's got these kind of, like, Barry Gibb haircuts. So it's a film made in 1988, and it's supposed to depict 1972, and I cannot hear any of that in Johnny Wolfe and the Wolfpack's music. I mean, he's talking about Alice Cooper, but, I don't hear any of that. There's, like, no David Bowie, no T-Rex, no BTO, like nothing of that. I mean,
yeah,
like the Wolfpack is kind of, I would describe as like Springsteenian, like Mellencamp-y.
Right.
It's like it's jean jacket rock.
Yeah, jean jacket with the American flag pinned to it.
Right.
Yeah, it's very. That's pretty Bruce Springsteen like. So.
Right. It's like the most electrifying rock and roll since Loggins met Messina. Oh, and another thing about that back patch of the American flag or whatever, that feels very, I don't know, I'd say like Easy Rider, type of a thing.
Yeah.
But then there's a scene where a kidnapped Elvis notices that he's got an American flag as a back patch, which enrages Elvis, who rips it off his jacket. And to reveal that it's actually a full flag just folded up.
Right.
Because then they do the fold. It's like, you're not going to like trim that to fit. It's just like it's an actual full-size flag all kind of bunched up on your back. That's weird.
That's a lot of fabric, too. It'd be like heavy. And the weird thing that he does mention something in that scene about what's next, like American flag toilet paper. And I'm pretty sure we have that, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so... Because there was one thing we took from this movie was respect for the American flag. Anyway, yeah, that Alice Cooper song, it came out in 72, so it would be like a brand spanking new hit right then.
So, I mean, I'm just kind of like surprised that Johnny Wolfe wasn't more of a signifier of his times. Like, longer hair. He could have gone in like the T-Rex direction and had like kind of like billowy scarves. And then at one hand, it'd be like, oh, well, this doesn't really mesh with an older, more conservative view from Elvis. But then Elvis would have like, oh, well, let me show you how to, really wear a scarf. Because, they could have bonded over scarves. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, that would have I will say the sister does wear a Led Zeppelin T-shirt numerous times. So, like Zeppelin 1, I want to say. Something like that.
Right.
Yeah, just pretty slick. I kind of wish I had one of those.
Yeah. It's a good shirt. Oh, man, speaking of the daughter, holy crap. Just the way that Elvis bonds with Johnny Wolfe's little sister. It's like this kind of scene where he's convincing her to not be afraid of the dark, and she's about to go to bed, and it's kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of lit romantically. And all that was missing was Elvis basically saying, when I first met my wife, she was your age,
I thought the same thing, because there's a scene, it's the later one where she finally turns out the final nightlight, because she sleeps with the nightlight, because she's scared of what they refer to in the movie as slimy soul suckers. And then he talks about his daughter not sleeping with the lights on anymore, but Lisa Marie would have only been like 3 or 4 at this point. And also another thing, it's 1972. He's still married.
Yeah.
He's still married. So he has a wife and kid at home, and he never makes a phone call to them. He calls the colonel. It's like, I needed some time off. I'm going to go driving, and there's no phone out here. But he never calls his wife. No wonder they got divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, the fable Elvis. You know, I'm sure,
Right.
like reality Elvis, if he had been kidnapped and was there, he would have at least tried to make a phone call. Oh,
Right. Well, you know, it's a fairy tale, so Elvis never does that. There is not even a single mention of drugs the entire film.
oh man. You know, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it would have been like 90% of this movie would have been like that scene from the movie Ray, where he's trying to kick heroin. And he's just in and out of the bed, and he's sick, and he's sweating, and you know these flashbacks to the past. And that would have been a great bunch of scenes. Like there would have been a great sequence. Yeah, it's a missed opportunity. But yeah, I mean, how many drugs was he on back then? It's a lot.
Right. And I mean, young Johnny Wolfe, it definitely seems like somebody who would have been well acquainted with the weed. Mm-hmm. And that could have been a fun scene where Elvis is like, you know, hey man, get rid of that stoner weed. Let me show you the real shit. And, you know, pulled out like a little pill bottle full of like, you know, Quaaludes or whatever.
Yeah, or, you know, if he had just had him like a bunch of bottles of pills in his robe when they kidnapped him, and then he was kept going back to the bottles. And maybe he would, like a scene where he's running out of pills.
Right.
He's like, man, I got to score some more pills.
Right.
Like him in a pharmacy, like drugstore cowboy style.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite that. He probably could have just walked in someplace and said, hey, I'm Elvis Presley and I need pills. And they probably just would have given them to him.
Right.
Small town America. That's how it worked back in the 70s.
Yeah, well, you know, if Elvis was still alive, that's how it would work for him even now. Just like going into a pharmacy and demanding drugs. And you know, who's going to tell Elvis no?
It's true.
But, you know,
if Elvis was still alive, he probably would have kicked that stuff by now. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he'd still just be a pillhead.
I don't think you'd like live that long if, you know, you hit it as hard as Elvis does. Or Elvis did.
But
and,
now he'd be on like Lipitor or something, right? He'd just be on all the old person pills.
Yeah.
Chondroitin or something.
He'd still eat like 100 cartons of yogurt a day, but it would be that, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis making you poop yogurt.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that stuff called?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you want to look it up and then we can hit the joke harder? Or not? Well, let's just leave it. Yeah, this is
it's gold. It's gold the way it is.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, who needs the facts?
But yeah, so much to talk about this even still. I feel that there was a way to make this material work, and this was not the way to go with it. This kind of like Norman Rockwell fable approach. I think more campy, self-aware direction. I'm not saying it would have been a good movie. It just would have been like better, perhaps. Like this is kind of a hack answer to that, but could you imagine this movie being made by like John Waters?
Yeah, it definitely would have been campier, a much campier version. Even the way that they got him there would have been even more ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You know, where they just pull up with a car and then he gets into it and they just drive off or something. You know, like, and they don't explain the whole thing. I don't know.
Though, for that matter, you know, pitching John Waters as a director of a project, I think basically makes every movie sound more appealing to me. You know, like,
Sure.
It's like, okay, it's the story of the Titanic, directed by John Waters. I'd be like, yes, go. I'm all in on that.
Okay, imagine Die Hard, directed by John Waters.
I'd watch that movie.
I would watch that movie. I'd watch it twice, at least.
Yeah, because
I'd watch it every Christmas.
Like John Waters would be like rated R. You could have Johnny Wolfe be played by, I don't know, Eddie Furlong.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Which, talking about who this character is played by, I've got a Would You Believe?
Oh yeah, hit me with it.
Okay, so Would You Believe? Hold on, I have to look it up. So once again, doing my just exhaustive research on this movie, which was mostly watching a few times and Googling. But hold on, I have to find it here. Oh, okay, I have a couple of them, but we'll just do this one for now. Mm-hmm. So the character of Johnny Wolfe was at one point, they were going to have the then not very well-known actor named Jason Priestley was tapped for the role, but then couldn't play it because it conflicted with the shooting schedule for a show he did called Teen Angel. Yeah.
That feels true.
Nope, I made that up. I apologize to you, but it sounds right,
Yeah.
doesn't it? I'm getting good at those.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. You got it right twice, I think.
Yeah. Well,
I should really look at the scoreboard.
If I get 5 right, do I get something like a free Subway sandwich or something?
You get to continue doing this podcast. If you get if you get 5 more wrong, then we replace you. Yeah,
damn it.
With a different guy named Wade. So that we wouldn't have to change any of the marketing.
Yeah. It's just like, you fire Peter Criss and you put a new guy in the makeup. Oh, Kiss came up again. Holy crap.
Hey, yeah, there you go.
It's been a while.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, there you go. Congratulations.
It's been a few episodes.
You get one more, would you believe, for every time you bring up Kiss. Just Excellent. By randomly. So.
I've got a would you believe for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, lay it on me.
Okay. The star of the film, Charlie Schlatter, is played by, or Johnny Wolf is played by God damn it.
Why don't you take that? Walk that back and do it again. Let's get a clean take.
Right. Okay. The character of Johnny Wolf is played by Charlie Schlatter. Was best friends in real life with Bob Hope, who was his acting coach and biggest advocate in the business, and basically made some phone calls and made this role happen for him. Would you believe?
So would I believe that Charlie Schlatter was really good friends with Bob Hope, like the Bob Hope, like?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna say that I believe that.
I got you on one. See, there's an element of truth in that.
Okay, but here's the thing. The reason I wasn't going to believe it because you said he took acting lessons from him, and I can't imagine Bob Hope ever giving acting lessons. But I kind of bought like the taking him under his wing kind of thing.
Right.
So what's the element of truth?
The element of truth is that's a true story, except the guy in question is Dick Van Dyke.
Very nice. Was
his best buddy.
Okay. So, man, you really aged it out by like several decades.
Yeah.
Is this like a party story you tell sometimes, and you're just like, I know.
Yeah.
Whatever. I was gonna say you could have used it with David Keith.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Next time.
That's true.
Next time. Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got here? Things I have written down. There's an early scene of Elvis post-concert in his hotel room hanging out with the Memphis Mafia members. Mm-hmm. And just, that's a scene that completely falls flat.
It does, except for one thing. Mm-hmm. And it's him reading the telegrams.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the weird things. Like, most of it is really bad, but then that's pretty much right from That's the Way It Is.
Mm-hmm.
That backstage footage where he's sitting there just like, you get the little cards and it's like, hey, drop dead, sign the Pope, that kind of thing. Still funny,
right?
Because he does something like that with the Nixon sent him a good luck on your show or whatever thing,
like an edible arrangement.
Yeah, exactly. But I know what you're saying. All those guys, all those like Memphis Mafia guys, I don't think they're all supposed to be anybody. They're just kind of there.
Right. I mean, they don't call any of them by name. They feel like composite characters, just like basically these are like Memphis Mafia types. But I looked in the credits and somebody is billed as being Jerry Schilling.
Okay.
And somebody is billed as being George Klein. But any similarities between the actual people and like who we see backstage, purely coincidental.
Right.
Also in that scene, one of the Memphis Mafia members is wearing jeans.
That's a thing that I don't buy. And then later on, we have David Keith portraying Elvis wearing jeans, like mowing the lawn, and I'm like, he didn't do that. Like, I don't think he wore denim unless it was for a role. He very very rarely wore denim. It was like not his thing. So,
well, I mean, I think that kind of plays to the whole he's taking a vacation from being Elvis.
Oh man, that's a leap.
Yeah, but also in that same scene, young Johnny Wolf is trying to get a lawnmower started. So then Elvis comes up and it's like, hey, buddy, let me show you how to start a lawnmower. Mm-hmm. Gets it on the first try, and then's like, do you mind if I mow this lawn? And I'm just like, if you're an Elvis fan, answer me this. When ever in Elvis's life would he have mowed a lawn or ever been around a lawnmower? because when he was a little kid, you know, living in Tupelo, not mowing lawns. When he was like a preteen teen, they moved to Memphis and lived in like basically like an apartment building. So he wasn't mowing any lawns then. No.
That first house that he lived in, maybe, but he wouldn't have been able to go outside. There were like kids sleeping on the lawn anyway. So they probably had people mowing it for him. Or Vernon was doing it.
I could see that.
Earning his keep.
Right. So it's the sort of thing that if you're in a writer's room, I'm shocked no one ever like brought that up. Like, explain to me exactly when Elvis would have ever been around a lawnmower and like mowed a lawn. It's just bad writing.
Yeah. And the same thing right around that time. So they have him shave his sideburns down, which is fine. But then, I don't know, I've never dyed my hair. But if you dye your hair black, you don't just wash it once and it's gone. Like, that'd be really bad hair dye.
Right.
But they might make it look like you can just wash your hair one time. And now all of a sudden he's back to his natural color. So
when I first saw this movie as a young guy, that definitely gave me like really strange ideas about the, you know, nature of hair dyes, that you could just do that. I don't know. Yeah, that was definitely a strange element as well.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you would consider good about this movie? Like, let's do, you know, good column, bad column. Like, what's good about this?
I think it's almost like plausible, not plausible. I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess there are a couple of scenes. In a way, it's so bad it's sort of good, right? And there is the scene where they redecorate the entire house. And it's so horrible after they redecorate it. It's so bad that I think they kind of got that right. I think if you let Elvis loose with a bunch of money in a hotel and he's like, just do what you want to do, I think that's pretty much what it would have looked like. And just like throwing out that kid's posters and doing all that stuff, and just like there's literally just this kid's life just piled up, and he like throws this fit. And this is a guy who went and kidnapped Elvis. And then he got Elvis at his house, and he was like so not happy that Elvis was at his house. He's like, "You're just supposed to date my mom,"
right?
You know, and then that's it. It's like that's the whole thing.
That's probably like the part of the movie I laugh loudest at, or not like I'm laughing throughout the rest of the movie. It's just that scene is so funny to me. First of all, and this is another thing, I like to consider this like the white buck shoe scene in National Lampoon Vacation. Calling back to that one, where Dennis Quaid gives Chevy Chase a pair of white buck shoes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's supposed to play as like really funny in the movie. And I guess it did when I was a young dude, but I watch that now and I'm like, what a thoughtful gift. I mean, these are really nice. You know, I'd really like to have a pair of shoes like that. So the joke just kind of doesn't exist anymore in that movie. And it's the same thing with Elvis taking it upon himself to redecorate Johnny Wolf's bedroom into, I don't know, like this pretty slick, you know, it basically looks like somewhere like Prince would live. Lots of velvet and
there's a black and white animal print like tiger rug, and I don't know where like the suit of armor thing, when that was really popular. I guess it was probably popular in the 80s actually, probably not so popular in the 70s, but to have like the suit of armor thing and the candelabras and all that stuff.
Right. Just the fact that Johnny Wolf throws such a fit over it. Basically, all his ratty furniture got thrown out. And it's not like junked. It's just like on the side of the road.
Right, yeah, they didn't like set it on fire and like smash it or anything. But that entire hotel does kind of look like a brothel when he's done with it.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, might be a better way to make revenue, because they weren't making it as a hotel.
Yeah, another one of those movie hotels where there's not a single guest. It's like the Bates Motel.
Yep.
So, oh man, the scene where Johnny Wolf like loses his shit because, you know, like, you wrinkled my Randy Travis poster, you know, like.
Yes, Randy Travis.
He's like he's on the verge.
My
of
Ronnie
tears.
Millsap poster is
It's like, oh, you know, hey, somebody I kidnapped by force. Like, you're crazy. And you just want to reach through the screen and like shake him and be like, Johnny Wolf, you know, big picture here, buddy. It's like Elvis bought you like thousands of dollars worth of furniture. When he leaves, you can sell it.
You just go sell it, put your old crap back in there.
Right.
Yeah.
What the hell, man? Big picture.
Where do you think the Tuesday Weld character, the mom, is getting the money to keep that hotel open with nobody having stayed there in years? Like, how do you keep that place? How do you do it?
There are like a lot of unanswered questions in this movie, and I think this kind of speaks to the fact that it's a 90-minute runtime, almost exactly on the dot, which is, I think, a telltale sign that there's a lot of stuff that hit the cutting room floor. I imagine this probably ran, 20 minutes or so longer and just filled in a lot of the gaps because it doesn't really, there's not a whole lot to it. It's like basically setting up Johnny Wolf and his mom's life, and then the Elvis kidnapping scheme, which, as we pointed out, takes up like a really short amount of like screen time.
Right.
And then Elvis getting convinced to stay, also it's like basically one conversation. And then next thing you know, you're at the goddamn talent show. And it's like, wait, what happened?
I agree. And I know that there was, this is another Would You Believe? So they did cut some of it because they had a character, and there was kind of a goofy cop character, kind of a nerdy, gangly cop played by Ed Begley Jr. Originally. And he was and they did film some of it, and then they had to cut all of that because it just didn't work. But it was in there for comedic effect because they wanted more laughs in the movie, and then they just cut it because they wanted to focus more on the family stuff. That is another reason it was as short as it was. So there you go. Would you believe?
I am going to say no.
Yeah,
I do not believe that.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
Yeah. Okay. Other stuff I liked about the movie. This is going to have to come up, but Johnny Wolf and the Wolf Pack, they got good gear, man. What can I say? Like the guitars.
Yep, they got nice guitars, some nice stuff.
Johnny Wolf playing a Fender Telecaster with the body binding. Very good look.
Yeah, it's a nice look.
Also, you got
it's a 335.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, man, I love those.
Kid with 335, kind of vintage P bass with all the funk filters still screwed on.
Yep.
They look good, but that also makes me wonder. It's like, okay, you guys got a practice space. You guys got professional level gear, and you're trying to get into this talent show for like 3 years. It's like, this term didn't exist at the time, but just DIY that shit, man.
Yeah, what they could be doing is just charging kids to come over and have that just be, it's a big space. You could have 20, 30 kids there,
Right. Yeah, or like rent out the local VFW or,
Yeah, they have a ballroom in the hotel, unused. They could literally go, they have a space to play in. They're just not thinking it through, man.
Yeah.
I think the first time, it's like he woke up and one day he was like, the solution to all my problems is kidnapping Elvis. When he has a hotel, he has space to do all this stuff in. It's pathetic. It's just so pathetic.
Right. And here's another question. Johnny Wolf's mom dating Elvis. Did it cheer her up?
It didn't seem to him. The thing is, he's married.
Yeah.
He's married. They can't be dating. He's married. And he has a daughter. Like, this doesn't work. Yeah. Like, none of this works.
Yeah. So, I forget. Is it implied that they porked?
Oh, they go on that rowboat thing, don't they? Don't they go do the rowboat thing?
That's right. And there's that earlier scene where Tuesday Weld explains that, me and your father, went on a rowboat and then we porked.
Right. So, because they're going to see the Elvis double feature and they talk about it. And whose mom would tell their 17-year-old son that? And then the daughter at one point was like, "Oh, Mom, don't you remember hanging out? And you were always wondering if Elvis was as good in bed as he is a singer." And, this is like a 10-year-old kid saying that at the dinner table. And here's something else that's not plausible. In that scene, and I'm kind of going off the subject a bit, she brings all these hamburgers to the table, and Keith, Elvis, kind of counts everybody really quick, grabs 2 hamburgers before anybody else is served, and then everybody else gets 1. I don't think Elvis would have done it like that. I think he would have been a gentleman. Everybody else gets served first, and then he would eat afterwards.
Right.
Or, he would take his portion after everybody else.
But, once again, if we're like speculating on what Elvis would have done, I think like the very first thing he would have done when he met Johnny Wolf in that alleyway with the fake Gladys, he would have, probably
shot him.
Probably would have shot him, but I think he maybe would have sized up the kid and figured he didn't need to use a gun, and he probably would have kicked him like 55 times in the solar plexus.
Oh, I think, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, he probably just would have pistol whipped him.
Yeah.
That's probably what he would have done. Is like, I don't need to do this, but
just like a quick jab to the throat, and then a tiger eye rake.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something he would have done slow motion to Red West, like on film. Yeah.
Yeah, he would have been like, here's my big chance.
Yep. Because he's practiced all these moves so many times.
Yeah. Circling back around to the vintage guitars that I enjoyed seeing in the film. Man, that was a missed opportunity for the film, because it's like, I think that Johnny Wolf and the Wolf Pack should have been playing all these late 60s, early 70s Sears catalog Japanese Taisco pieces of shit. You know what I mean? And then Elvis comes into town, and then that would have been part of the buying spree montage.
Oh,
it's like, like let's get you boys some real instruments, and that could have been fun.
And bought Johnny the Paisley, like the James Burton style. Yeah,
I like
on
it.
top
I like
of
it.
Yeah. And then the 335, I think that's John Wilkerson. Is that his name? John Wilkerson. Like that's what he would have gotten. So basically, getting them exactly what his band would have had, like the Ronnie Tutt style double bass drum kind of deal. Yeah,
like the Jerry Schiff bass.
Yep. Cheers.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah. And then of course, like getting them some sweet inspirations to sing back up.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're going to kidnap me, you also have to kidnap Kathy Westmoreland, because we're like a package deal.
Yeah, she does all the high voice singing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also in that talent show scene, Elvis sporting a Les Paul, which is, oddly enough, a model of guitar never photographed with Elvis, to my knowledge.
Now, he had that, what was it in the 68 comeback? That was a Gibson, right? The red.
That was a Hagstrom.
Oh, that is a Hagstrom. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which would have been a great guitar.
Sure, yeah, for that scene. And be like, oh, yeah, I know exactly the guitar I need for this scene. Yeah, definitely missed opportunity. Just sloppy. Though, good stuff. I could also talk about the movie. I got to give it up to David Keith. Or is it Keith David? I can't keep them straight.
It's David Keith. You can call it either one. You can call them either one. Yeah. He'll answer to either.
Right. He's committed to the role. He's trying his very best. It's obvious that he, did a lot of work with the voice, the mannerisms. And really, there's only one part that falls flat for me, when he's like having his first argument with Johnny Wolf about turning his back on rock and roll. And he's like kind of fires back with, my concerts kick ass.
Yeah, I don't think he would have talked like that. But I will say this, and if you read an interview, there's an interview with Chris Columbus, and he does say in it, like, how impressed he was with David Keith's singing voice. It's one of the reasons he hired him for the part.
He actually does his own singing?
No, I don't know. I made that up. But I was going to do Would You Believe, but then I just kind of left it. But right. I know sometimes it seems like he is, and then when he's on stage during that, I don't know if that's him or not, but whoever is doing that Elvis is doing, like, it's not great.
It's not. It's weird. It's like a non-singer doing an impression of Elvis, which I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity. You could have got somebody who could really sing, and then they just could have lip synced.
I mean, there's some like Elvis impersonators out there who are like not only sound like Elvis, but are like actual, singers. Get one of those guys. I mean, It's just like there's a lot of like flat notes, and it's sloppy.
It's pretty sloppy. Agreed.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about this. Here's the thing. It is a weird, strange movie that for some reason I sort of root for, but I can't figure out why.
Right.
And I'm not, but I don't think I'm going to rewatch it anytime soon.
Yeah. It's a movie I already, owned in my home video library, so I enjoy it on some level. But then again, just Elvis crap, I tend to like keep around. Obviously, we're doing a podcast about Elvis, so
yeah, and there is good content out there about him, and I think at some point we'll have to talk about best Elvis best movie Elvis impersonations or performances, people who are performing as Elvis. I've got a few, like television or movie. I mean, I got a couple in mind.
Sure, I have as well. I don't think David Keith makes my list. I do think that he's far from the weak link of the film, but it was too much of a stretch for me, David Keith as Elvis. But who do you got? Who's the best at it?
Well, for it's Michael St. Gerard. I really like him. Yeah, I really like him portraying Elvis because he doesn't do anything too crazy, but he's got the look.
Yeah, he does.
He's got the look. He's, especially that early 50s era. And then my other one is a little bit off the charts, but Val Kilmer. In that Val Kilmer and True Romance. It's very subtle, but for what it's worth, I do enjoy it. Because, sort of the Top Secret movie is kind of a ripoff of that whole Elvis kind of thing.
He's not doing an Elvis impersonation in that film. He's playing an Elvis-like character, right?
Exactly. And, I could go on about that movie all day. And I certainly wish that's what we had watched instead of Heartbreak Hotel, but whatever. But, how about you? So I'll stick with Michael St. Gerard, but for you, please, please, please let it be Don Johnson. That was indeed a thing. Please let that be what it is.
Which, on the subject of that, I have only become aware of that movie in the last week or so, which is, wild. I've been a Elvis aficionado most of my life, and just learning this late in the game that Don Johnson played Elvis for a TV movie, that's kind of mind-blowing. Yeah. It's up in its entirety on YouTube. And really, before I get too much into it, we really need to devote an entire episode to it, or at least that and something else. Because
maybe very soon. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to get into with that one.
Yeah.
But he does a good job.
But who's your guy? Who's your Elvis guy?
It would be easy to say Kurt Russell.
Okay.
From the TV movie. Mm-hmm. But I think my favorite portrayal of Elvis on screen, and this is sort of a stretch, I'm going to go with Nicolas Cage in Wild at Heart. Sort
of a homage more than an actual Elvis, right? Does he really do Elvis? But
the thing is, he's doing the voice, he's got the mannerisms, he sings 2 Elvis songs in the movie. They talk about Elvis.
Yeah.
This kind of a hack observation, but Wild at Heart is nothing if not like an Elvis movie on acid.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, for my money, I think he's bringing the truest Elvis spirit to his performance. So much to the point that he actually married Elvis's daughter at one point.
Yeah, that is method. That's very method.
Yeah.
I kind of thought you were either going to do Don Johnson or Bruce Campbell. So, yeah, you shocked me.
Oh, yeah. That's another good one. We could probably do a whole episode. It's just let's talk about people who've played Elvis and rank them. Have a tournament.
See, we were coming up with ideas for new shows, so stay tuned for those. So, final word, I feel like we should wrap it up on Heartbreak Hotel. We should turn in the key and check out from this episode. So what's your final word on Heartbreak Hotel? What do you think?
I just want to say to Johnny Wolf, so your mom likes to party. So what?
Yeah, let it slide, man. You're going to be out in a year or so anyway. You're going to go off to college.
But she doesn't party so hard that she can't get up the next morning and make a big breakfast for her kids.
After a couple smokes.
Right. Oh, and that's definitely kind of the 1980s big, gross homemade breakfast trope. See also Uncle Buck, where it's when did a nice home-cooked breakfast get such a bad rap in the 80s? I tell you, they're in the back pocket of big cereal.
Hey, man, I tell you what, though, they mentioned Sugar Smacks a few times. I certainly, at that age, would have probably taken that over a big home-cooked breakfast, unless we're talking waffles. If waffles were involved, then I'm all in.
Which we never really see exactly what's on the plate of the big gross breakfast that Johnny Wolf and his sister don't want to eat. But
it's several different types of meat and some eggs, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, they don't really. Yeah, they never address it really.
Man, when I was a kid, I would have loved to have a breakfast like that.
I'd like one of those now. I'd eat one right now if it presented itself.
I may make an egg sandwich before I go to bed.
It's very nice.
That could happen.
Okay. Well, you'll just have to tell us if you did that on the next episode, and then we'll find out the mystery of did Wade eat an egg sandwich before bed after taping this episode.
So stay on the edge of your seat until then.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll find out next time. And until then, check out Heartbreak Hotel or don't. No,
Yeah.
it's worth a watch. As much as we're giving it, we're
If
down
you
on
listened to this entire thing, that kind of says to me that you're interested. So
Yeah, it's got a lot of Elvis in it. A lot of Elvis songs and stuff. Soundtrack's good.
Yeah, actual Elvis recordings, which kind of blew my mind. This must have had full cooperation from the Elvis estate, or else licensing songs in the 80s was just kind of the Wild West, I guess.
Maybe, probably.
Because, you get like Michael Jackson songs in Revenge of the Nerds, which
That's true.
is mind-blowing.
True enough, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. But that's a question for another podcast.
Yeah.
So I have been Burl Tuttle.
And I continue to be Wade Durbin.
All right. We are going to leave it there. And then thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you later.
See you, folks.